we don't understand now why, but soon we will. Now, Daniel himself was a man of integrity. And one thing is that he stood by his upbringing, he stood by his faith. He may not have understood why, but he didn't wait for the end. He did what he felt was necessary because he made a decision. He grew up in it and he stuck to his guns, no matter the challenges. So further along, and we are on this journey this morning, we are also a Daniel, and we can also this morning ask, can we dare to be a Daniel? There is a chorus that sings, dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to be a purpose free, dare to make it known. And so this morning, as we study through this man named Daniel, there is some ethics that we need to apply to our way of life also. First of all, we find that Daniel was a man of purpose. Now, all of us do have a purpose in life. When we are young, there's some things we have a purpose is to grow up. And some of us grow up too soon, and when they are grown up, they want to be children all over again. I take my eldest brother. I know my parents used to tell him, you want to, jy wil te groot wees. You want to be grown up now already while you are still a child. And if I can recall, he was not like an ordinary child. He always wanted to be involved with grown-up activities. My father, the truck, it did not bother us, the truck. It was good to start it up and sit at the back, and there we go. But his thing was, he wanted to start up the truck. He wanted to pull it this way and that way. Same with in the house, we had those lamp, they call it the Coleman lamps. Remember, it was an electric that time. But people had light that was maybe brighter than electric light. While there was no electric. We grew up in a house that had electric light because of the lamps that we had, the Coleman lamps. But it was he fiddled with that thing, and when my father needed to work the thing at night, that thing had a little bag inside, and you must not touch that bag. And because you must not touch that bag, he had an itch to go and touch that bag, and then all hell broke loose. Because he was always inquisitive and wanted to be, and once he was a big man, he wanted to become again. Where was my childhood? Anyway, now that is his purpose. Our purpose in life? What is our purpose? I know I always wanted to be in the church. I enjoy it when I hear people relate. I still heard some guy say that when he was a child, when they get home, then he's got the sermon all over again. And he says even better than the priest or the dominie or the reverend, because he wanted to say, this is how he should have preached. And so he already, well, he is that kind of guy today. He's a preacher today, but he's that vibrant type of guy preacher. You see, so that was his purpose. He grew up and he became that person. And so I remember my grandfather and my father always had arguments. And now my father became a reverend eventually. And then my grandfather always says, then you're still a reverend. You did not grow up to become a reverend. You know who wants to be a reverend? Look at that boy of yours. He will become a reverend one day. Well, future, my grandfather spoke already. But he said my father couldn't be a reverend because the way he was when he was a child. Well, life changes when you put your purpose. Maybe when he became a young man and he found all, he would say when he saw all the enticements of the world. My brother's eldest son said, when we're standing there in Luderitz, in Namibia, he says, my opa, my grandfather, we were standing on the docks, and he says, look here, my grandson, this is the docks. But there's not one person here that can come to you and come and tell you, your grandfather was such and such a man. Because I was here, I rather slept in the boat, but I didn't go and walk the town like all the other guys. Well, then he said, maybe later, maybe him and his father never saw eye to eye, because maybe he set his eye on to being somebody. And my grandfather he only was twice in the church, the day he got married and the day he buried him. That's all I can talk of him. Otherwise, I don't recall. I can recall he went to church. He's put on, he says, Kanta. He called my grandmother, Kanta. Today I'm going to church. Then my grandmother would shave him, because she shaved him and put on his suit. And the afternoon, you see, there he comes down the path, jacket all the show and the tie hanging here. And you can see by the way he comes, he's met a friend along the way. He never reached church. Maybe that's his way of getting out of the house to get a drink or so. But I'm just giving purpose in life. Now we've got young people here this morning. It's enjoyable to see the young children here. I remember one day we was here by the fruit and veg here at the bottom by Somerset Mall, and then Jungle was talking to a guy, and I asked him after, do you know this guy? He said, no, that boy was regular in the Sunday school, but look at him now. You see, when you go up, you meet all kinds of friends. So we look at our young Sunday school children. They may look wild and undisciplined and maybe, but one day I will maybe also look more into their eyes, say, this boy or this girl was once in our Sunday school. But will we have to meet them on the street one day and then ask, where are you? So while they are here, they may not be maybe our first choice of Sunday school children, but at least that young heart, that young spirit, we are feeding him or her with the best food ever present, and that is singing. The choruses, teaching out there the value of our Sunday school. There's a little list there at the back, and I can see it here in the bulletin also, if I can find my bulletin. We are requesting Sunday school teachers and so on. Yeah, but the prospect is very slow, and but we must have a purpose in life. And Daniel, it is said, Daniel was a man of purpose. And then we go to chapter 1 of Daniel, verse 8. The problem was that Daniel was now in a foreign country. Daniel was in the idol-worshipping country. Daniel came from a country where they worship God, the right God, the perfect God, the only God. And one would have to say now, but Stephen, if they had everything right, what are they doing in an idol-worshipping country? What went wrong? And that's the right question to ask. What went wrong? They did not have a purpose in life. They didn't stuck to their purpose. When they were in Egypt, they had a purpose. Cry unto God and say, save us from this country. Where is the promise that you made to our fathers? And so God came. God heard. But when God and Moses came into the country, he told them in Deuteronomy, do not go after the other gods. And what was their purpose? Let's go after the other gods. How many times didn't God show himself unto them? Even the earth opened up and swallowed some of them. But did they listen? They could beat the mighty Jericho, and they go fail in a small little town called Ice. And Joshua asked, why? There's sin in the camp. So they lost their purpose. They lost their purpose. They could cry when they were in need, and when they were saved, the purpose changed. It's like in our country, always when the political things were upset in our country, you always heard this famous saying, they shift the goalpost. We were playing this way. Now when we get to the goal area, we find out that we can't score because the goalpost is down this side. Who changed the post? Well, the same with these people also. That's why they were now in Babylon. Far from God. Well, so to say, figuratively speaking, they were far from God. But God was very near because He's in the heart of the man. In the man Daniel, and He purposed in his heart, I am not going to eat from the king's table because I've been brought up according to the statutes of the living God. Therefore, he can go to the supervisor and say, we're not going to eat. Give us vegetables, and I can guarantee you we're going to be better. And it was so, because he purposed in his heart. And so also we as I remember he was a young man. Because remember, when they got there, when Nebuchadnezzar took over Israel, he went to the palace and he got the best of the best. And Daniel was amongst them. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was the best of the best. Ezekiel was the best of the best. They were there. That's why they could stand for the God, because they were purposed. They did not lose their sight of their purpose. They did God honor because they were purpose in it. Hulle was doelgerig in Afrikaans. And so, we find that Daniel, every one of us, every child of God needs to be a person of purpose. When Jesus came to earth and he walked this earth, the scripture would say, then he purposed, he set his eyes on Jerusalem. Every time when they wanted to crown him king, he disappeared from amongst them. Every indication that it would move away from his purpose, he disappeared. Till eventually, he set his eyes on Jerusalem because he knew the time is now right, because I need to become that sacrifice for mankind, for me and for you. And he did it. He went to the cross of Calvary. It was his purpose. Also, the man of Daniel was a man of principle. He refused to compromise. He rather ate the vegetables. He actually instructed. So he was not at that moment just purposed. He had principle because he was convicted the right thing is the right thing to do. He's not going to compromise. He's got principle in his heart. And as Christians, we have got principles. There's certain statutes, certain laws, gospel laws that we must adhere to. It's a principle. Sometimes we hear this thing that this person has got no principle. That means he's like every wind of doctrine changed him. And that's what the book of Hebrews warned us again. Don't be tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. I grew up in a town where boats were near our home. We can look out of our dining room or from the stoop. We can see the boats, and they're all moored out there. And we can see the boats come in, and they would pull up that anchor, and they would tie it down on the boat. Many times there were storms. Sometimes those boats would end up on the rocks because the anchor rope broke, couldn't take the strain. Sometimes that can happen in our life also. A principle is to be anchored in the Lord, not to drift away. The book of Hebrew warns us about do not be drift away. So, the question can be asked of us, are we principled? Are we ones that, I think it is Psalm 15, it's only made up of 5 verses. And I would like to read this psalm to us, a psalm of David, Psalm 15 from verse 1. Who may stay in God's temple or live on the holy mountain of the Lord? Who may stay or live on the mountain of the Lord, the holy mountain? Only those who obey God and do as they should. They speak the truth. It's principle. Verse 3, and don't spread gossip. They treat others fairly and don't say cruel things. Read it in Psalm 15, verse 4. They hate worthless people, but show respect for all who worship the Lord. So they make distinction in those that are worthless, those that are not worshippers, those that find the need to waste their life, but to knock on your door, or to get you in the street, or to get you in your car, begging. I will ask them sometimes, do you belong to a church? Because if you belong to a church, you would not be begging. Because I believe, I think it's Psalm 37 that says, so I'm correct, I've never seen a child of God beg or have need. They hate worthless people, but show respect for all who worship the Lord. And they keep their promises, no matter what the cost. Principled. The last verse, verse 5. They lend their money without charging interest, and they don't take bribes to hurt the innocent. Those who do these things will always stand firm. Those that are principled will always stand firm. You think we'll take the psalm and post it there to President Ramaphosa that he can see, don't let the people take bribes to hurt in, because that is where they don't need to hike the VAT. They must just stop the looting. There's enough money in this country. It's enough. People don't need to get 2,000 rand a month. They can get 5,000 plus, maybe, if it is correctly done. But we've got people there with big pockets for themselves. They're not principled. Principled, you mean you need to be honest. And then the third point is Daniel was a man of purity. When we read there in Daniel in chapter 6, now we read it this morning, and it says, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, to be over the whole kingdom, over all these 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, that the satraps might give account to them, and would report back to the president, so that the king would suffer no loss. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him. He was a man of purity. Excellent spirit was in him, and the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. So the governors became jealous of him. That is how this man Daniel was, filled with purity, and the king noticed him, wanted to make him below the king himself because of the spirit of this. It says here, when these are the accusations, they say, so the governors and the satraps sought to find some charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no charge or fault because he was faithful. We are children of God. If somebody need to describe me and you, will they be able to say this? He was faithful, nor was there any error or fault found in him. They're looking to want to blame Daniel, but they're looking now for excuses, and all that they find is that this man is pure. Then these men said, we shall not find any charge against Daniel unless we find it against him. We must construe, we must make something so that we can fail him. And that is what they said. He's a worshipper. And we're going to say the king must be worshipped for 30 days. And we're sure he's going to break it. They knew this man. And that they did went to the king, set up and said, make a law that for 30 days you must be worshipped. And what does the Bible say? Verse 10 of chapter 6 of Daniel. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, and he knew it's signed, they cannot recall it. He went home, and in his upper room, with his window open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. Are we in the same mold? We serve the same Lord, same God. Are we in that same mold? If somebody wants to wrong us, well, we have so much good point in us that they have to develop things to fail us. Daniel, when he heard it, he took it as a challenge. I'm going to show them. I'm not scared because I've got more power on my side than that what they've got. And he sat in the window 3 times a day, kneeling, praying. This is Daniel. He's the principal. He was there to be a Daniel. His opponents could not find any fault. The Christian is also to maintain purity of conduct. People must not be able to say at work, this is the biggest thief. This is the one that is always late. This is the one that's always got complaints. This is the one, this is the one, this is the one. All in a negative sense. Should not be applied to us as Christians, as workers, as followers of Christ. This church should be the safest place. We should not even think of things disappearing from here. I must be able to leave my phone here and come back and still find it. But I get heart attacks if I find I don't have my phone on there. I remember I left it on the seat here and come back and say, oh, thank you, it's still here. Because sometimes you can't even trust your phone here. You know, I dropped off Sister Cecilia with the children off in Makassar. And as I opened the rear door of the van and tell the children, watch the motor cars, watch the motor cars. There stand a boy with my phone in his hand, and for one moment I looked at him with maybe, what you doing with my phone? But I look at him, but this is my phone, but what is this boy doing with my phone? And before I can explode, I look and say, where'd you find my phone? It fell out of the van when you opened your door. And I forgot, I put it in the bag, that side pocket. As I opened the door, it fell out there, and I rushed out at the back. I was so amazed, that a boy, maybe 10, 11, 12 years old, in Makassar, could pick up my phone and bring it to me and say, brother, pastor, your phone fell out. And I felt I needed to compensate, and do I have money here on me? And I forget, Isaac always give me something, pocket money for me. I tell him this morning, it's good, brother, it's pocket. I don't want to take it, but this is pocket money for me. And I took that money, and I gave him I think there was a 50 rand in there, because I wanted to, look, where's this boy that gave me? And he was way back, and I called him back and said, man, you did something good this day. You did something great. You leave me wordless. I am. But I feel you need to be compensated. And if I had more, I would have given you more, because my phone is much more worth than what I'm giving you today. But thank you that the friends next to their eyes went so big. Maybe 50 rand is a lot of money for them. But I had to compensate him because he did a good... I tell him, you know what? You're going to become a preacher one day. You're going to be a child of God one day, because you're already bearing the fruits. In Makassar, you're going to put it in his pocket and disappear. But he gave my phone back to me. As I say, for one moment I was, what's he doing with my phone? But I'm only human. I settled down and I asked, what? He said, you've opened your door, the phone fell out. I saw it. I decided, I purposed in my heart, and I'm a principled boy. My mother brought me up correctly, and I've got purity of heart. Yes, your phone. I didn't have much more. I would have given it. But just an example. It's like when we were doing same ethics, Fred Berg was the guy of the Benoni, and he said, you know, he taught us now ethics. He says, they always take his car to BMW. He had the BMW, took it regularly for service. Now the BMW only takes 4.5 liters of oil. But they charge you on the job description 5 liters of oil. So once they put in 4.5 liters of oil, they discard the can with a 0.5 liter. And so one of the guys working there accumulated all these 0.5 liters, and he filled up a 5-liter oil. And when he got to the gate, they arrested him for stealing. And he said, I'm not stealing. I'm just helping myself. You're chucking the stuff away, and I see a need for it. They say, you're stealing. And they had to go to the CCMA, and okay, there they done it, and they said, okay, he's learned his lesson well. BMW is rich enough to discard that 0.5 liter, but it is not his right as a worker of the company to help himself to that oil. Everybody of us can say, he's wise. It's oil for him that was chucked away. It was there on the rubbish bin. But that's what happened. Same happened to me. I was working for Plascon Evans, and I saw my in-laws' house was leaking. And you can have a symphony orchestra for all the pots and pans that to put a ding, bang, plum, plip, plap, plap. Maybe you've grown up that way. You know what I'm talking about. You see? And Plascon Evans was not just making paint, but they were making all household things. And there was this one department that had this roof sealer. And I look at it and I think to myself, I can fill up a can. So I've got a 1 liter tin, and I scrape the barrels, all the barrels, and I start filling this 1 liter can up. And I got to the 5 o'clock when we leave, the security guard said, open up my bag, open it up, I've got nothing to steal. And there he finds this one tin. Wow. He said, I must report you. So I had to go stand appear before the security chief. He says, I'm a thief. I said, I'm not a thief. I just took it. It was just there. It was, okay, I understood that there was all the drums that they make the product in, and I just cleaned the drum out nicely and filled up this tin. And then he says, but you took the tin. Well, I couldn't take it in my hand. He took the tin. So he couldn't get me now on the product. He says, how many workers is here? I say 600 about because I can see with the clock card. Maybe I was 604 or so, but it's about 600. He said, now just imagine 600 of these people take 1 ton out of this gate. Didn't that firm pay for it? Well, there I had to jump off my cart and admit, well, I didn't think that far. But then I had to plea. I didn't mean anything wrong. If I must pay for it, then I will not pay for it. But you see, it's work ethics. And they're strong at work ethics. And purity, I failed. But it was true what he said. I took the 10. He wasn't worried about the product. Well, that was right, but the 10, he got me on that one. 600 people take a ton, say that ton weighs, cost maybe just 2 rand. How many 600 times 2? How many money goes out every time by the gate? But these are work ethics, and we must lay down. We must be purpose. I'm going to work. I'm doing it the best I can. I'm a principled person, and I'm purity. I've got purity in heart. And then we find that Daniel was a man of prayer. It says here, as was his custom since early days, he prayed 3 times a day. Now, we don't have these things that we say when you come here to the church, then we give you a little booklet and say, when you wake up in the morning, this is what you must do. When you go to work, this is what you do. We do not give you a recipe. We expect you to understand that you are a purpose-driven person, that you are a principled person, that you are a person that practices purity, and that you are a prayerful person. That's one criteria that we must not fail in. Daniel did not fail. He was purpose-driven. Law can be law. We can just ask ourselves, what if we must get a government in which they say no more church? Will we challenge it, or will we say, oh, hallelujah, glory, no more going to church? Or will we demand and use power? I don't know how you're going to do it, but somehow the government will have to be taught. And if a government has come to power, it can only be by a takeover, a coup. But we need to be a prayerful person, purpose-driven, principled, pure. And Paul, writing to Timothy, he says, just in conclusion, don't let this, 1 Timothy 4:12, don't let anyone make fun of you just because you are young. Or maybe I can even put in a word, just because you're a Christian. Set an example to other followers by what you say and do, as well as by your love, faith, and purity. Paul advised to Timothy. He says to Titus 2 and verses 6, tell the young men to have self-control in everything. Always set a good example for others. Be sincere and serious when you teach. He says, use clean language that no one can criticize. Do this, and your enemies will be too ashamed to say anything against you. What a way of life, what a principled way of life that is due from each one of us. He tells the slaves, okay, the slaves we have to interpret it is the workers. Always to please their owners or their bosses by obeying them in everything. Slaves must not talk back to their owners or steal from them. They must be completely honest and trustworthy. Then everyone will show great respect for what is taught about God, our Savior. Can we dare to be a Daniel? that we are purpose-driven, that we are principled, that we are pure, that we pray without ceasing. Paul writes to the Philippians, pray without ceasing. May God bless us. May we this day say, I want to be like Daniel. And I want to make God proud. I want that Jesus must know you want to make me in charge of everything. Oh, we are. We are in charge. We are in charge first of all of ourselves. And then we set the light. We spread the good news to everyone. So dear brothers and sisters,